Hello and welcome to our 5.7 video. Our goal in this video is I can solve problems involving unit rates. Evidence-wise, we are going to again calculate unit rates. Kind of been the theme for the last couple of episodes. And then you're going to compare unit rates as well. We might need to do that. That is a very real-life thing that you might have to do. You may also use unit rates to generate equivalent rates. We've practiced this a little bit in class, but we're going to continue doing so. Learning experience is there. We have one example in the UDO, and then there's a little bit extra that I want to show you that might save you some time, maybe not. We'll see. So, unit rates in real life. Let's consider the Mark IV tank. The Mark IV tank was a World War I tank. It looked like this.
First World War tank, very
Anyway, the tank could travel at a rate of 20 miles in 5 hours. We want to figure out how far it could have gone in 7 hours. So, the first thing that we're going to need to do is make a table, which we have here. I've already listed our initial rate, which was 20 miles in 5 hours. And next, we just need to think about what we need to do. So step one would be to write the rate. We've already done that. It's right here. It's 20 to 5. Step two would be to find the unit rate. Find the unit rate. And as we go through this, remember, if you need to pause the video and write any of this down, feel free to pause. So, finding the unit rate, since this is our second term, we are going to divide this by 5. Remember, we always want to divide our rate by the number that is our second value here. If we do that, we also have to do that to our first value. We have to do the exact same thing to both sides. That way we can keep things
perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
And if we do that, 5 divided by 5 is 1. 20 divided by 5 is 4. That's step 2. Step 3. We are going to use our unit rate to find the final rate, whatever the last thing that we need to find is. So, we already have a hint here in that we need 7 hours. We saw that up here. So we need to think, what can we do to 1 to get a 7? Well, we could add 6, but when we're dealing with rates and ratios, if we added 6 over here, it would no longer be an equivalent ratio. So instead, we could multiply this by 7. Again, to keep things
perfectly balanced,
we need to do the same thing to this side. We know that 1 times 7 is 7. It's right here. 4 times 7 would be 28. And here we're basically done. We have our answer. We know that the tank could drive 28 miles in 7 hours. The last thing that we should do, since this is a word problem, is write a sentence, a full sentence, for our answer. So we can write it up here. The tank could drive 28 miles in, kind of ran out of room here, but 7 hours. And that's it. We do want to make sure that we include that sentence. Your teacher probably wants you to do that if you want to get full points on a problem like this. But that's it. 3 easy steps plus write a sentence. Not too bad. Pause the video if you need to write any of this down. We went through it kind of quickly. And then we're going to do our UDO problem. Our UDO for today, you have a Ferrari that can travel at a speed of 109 miles in 30 minutes. You're going to figure out how far it could travel in 85 minutes. One thing I want to point out with this one is that your unit rate isn't necessarily going to be a whole number. You're still going to have a 1 on the bottom, but the top number is going to be a decimal, so watch for that. As a bonus challenge, if you want to try it, see if you can figure out how far it could travel in 60 seconds. Notice that that means that you need to somehow change your 30 minutes to 60 seconds. Something to think about. Pause the video. Give this a try. One last thing that I wanted to point out about this is we use this table here to kind of help us organize our thinking. When you get good at this, you don't need to use a table. You could just start off by writing your rate. You then just need to find the unit rate, so we divide by 5 as we saw. We get this new rate. Think about it, we should probably have our units in here, huh? And then you can just keep going. You don't need to use this table necessarily. I just think that it is a helpful tool to help you organize your thinking, because that kind of looks messy. If you use the table, it'll look a little bit nicer, though it is a little bit slower since you have to make the table first. Whichever method you choose is totally up to you. They're basically the same thing. Write this down if you need to. Otherwise, we're going to go on to our things to remember. Things to remember from this video. The first one is the same thing that's been in the last 3 videos. To find a unit rate, make sure you divide both numbers by the second value. Whatever the number on the bottom of your fraction is, the denominator, divide it by that value. You can then use the unit rate to help you find another value. The problem should give you some number to aim towards, but you'll need to figure out what that is. In some situations, you may also need to switch the terms. In the previous example with the Ferrari, if you instead knew how many miles it was driving, you would have to flip your rate to begin with before you find the unit rate. That's a unique situation. We saw that a little bit in class, but bear that in mind. Our suggested practice problems for today. There's 3 of them plus a challenge one, which is in red. The Mark IV tank could travel 35 miles using 70 gallons of gas. How many gallons would it need to travel 18 miles? Give that one to think. It's probably not going to be a whole number. Next one, Mr. H buys 10 chicken nuggets for $6.95. How much would 13 nuggets cost? The third problem, in the 5.5 feedback forum, 48 people said that they'd pick Charmander, and 47 people said Squirtle. How many people would pick Charmander if 60 people chose Squirtle? That data is actually accurate as of when I'm making this video. Bulbasaur was also on there, but he didn't make it for this problem. Finally, the challenge question. What is the maximum length of time a Mark IV tank could drive if it used all of its fuel? To answer that, you're going to need to go back to the example, as well as use the first suggested practice problem. You're going to need both problems and pull information from both of them to answer the challenge. You can try it, or you can skip it. I don't mind. That's why it's a challenge. Pause the video if you need to read these. And other than that, good luck.